Mm. Oh, there it is.
Hi, my name is Christina Reeser James. I'm with right outside of East Side. I grew up in this community. But I've lived back now for over 10 years. The reason I'm here is because I saw that the opioid money was on the agenda, and I've been trying to attend any of the meetings where that money is. I worked for 6 years in Chicago in a homeless outreach program, and I worked with people who struggle with mental health and substance abuse issues. And I just want to put in, there's two things that I really hope, and I heard you guys talking about it, was that the crisis team. I feel like putting money into something like that will help alleviate the burden of law enforcement, hospitals, and as well as schools. I think addressing this issue, which is really prevalent in our community, and we don't even a lot of times know. And if we're not affected by it yet, we will be eventually, if it's a friend, a neighbor, a relative. Um, the other thing is prevention. I think we can do a lot more prevention. I see Rick Center is pretty active partners with prevention. There's a couple things through the Department of Justice. They have a program, Ghost Reality, Your Choice to Live, and now they have a new program called Real Talk. And I think it's worth investing in our children and just educating parents and community members. So things are moving so fast now with synthetic drugs that, like, truly we don't know what to look for even anymore. So just knowledge is power. So, and I'm a huge proponent of this book called The Least of Us. It was written by Sam Quinones, and it talks about how this all happened, the overprescribing of opioids, and what's happened all over the United States. I don't think in our time we have a career. There's some places that are actually ahead of us, and we got some really neat things. And I realized that when it comes to $84,000 a year or something spread out over 18, that's not going to be huge, but if it brings about a conversation in the community, I think that could be super powerful. So I just wanted to thank you guys to, I think the best thing would to be do some kind of assessment to figure out what's needed to bring together community members, people from education, people from healthcare, people from law enforcement, and really use that as effectively as we possibly can. So I'm not like trained in anything, but I have had experience working with people, and I know, and this he brings this stuff in this book about how the only way for people to successfully recover is through a community and a network of people. So if we can, as a community, come together, educate ourselves, and then provide this network, I think we could, do something. So some of the states like Tennessee, Ohio, where they at first they thought lock them up, and no problems were solved. People are released and all the same issues. It wasn't until it was the judge's daughter or the sheriff's son that they realized we have to find a way to help people. And so I just appreciate you guys all, and I appreciate that that's on there, and this is becoming a conversation, and I just want to say if I could help anyone, I'd be happy to. Okay?
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Okay. Things. Moving on to item 5, discussion and action on the veteran services vouchers and internal transfers. So,
Alright. This always goes nice and quick for you guys for me. Alright, E.O. Johnson is 8059. We had to have a service done. Our scanner fucked went down, so that was a huge thing. We probably scanned hundreds of pages a day, so that we had to get fixed. Kidney bones should be the last one we have to deal with, and then it'll be switched over and not having a contract with them anymore. This should be it for that one. We share with ADRC upstairs, and IT shares with ADRC for postage meter and stuff, so we always get one month. The other two are Muggs and I, we have mileage for trainings, and she did an event in Dane County. They did a huge kind of like a veteran stand down event, and she helped do some claims and stuff down there. They have 7 different CDSO offices down there helping. She really said she wanted to go down there and might as well get her out there and get to meet some of the veterans. She said she had 5 veterans from Vernon County who showed up, so they had not come into our office yet, so there were 5 new veterans that we could add during this. And then US Cellular, they ended up overcharging us when I took the bill, and I called them up, and so we don't owe anything for this month. That's always a good thing. We can just jump right into everything else. Calls and walk-ins, again, still up. 187 calls, 72 walk-ins. And then for myself, 268 emails, 10 faxes, 29 text messages, and 3 letters this last month. We're up to 3,398 contacts year to date. So it's been pretty crazy, but it's been very productive this last month. We had 2 homeless vets. One ended up not being a veteran, so we were forced to tell him that he needed to go elsewhere. He was totally fine with it, and we were able to get him initial assistance once we had gotten out of jail. We were able to help him get initial assistance using the Salvation Army to get him a couple nights stay in a hotel until we could figure something else out. He has a vehicle back and different things like that. So now he kind of disappeared, so I'm not for sure.
So did he fill out forms that he was a veteran?
No, that's what we were looking for, DD-214.
Oh.
So the individual had a lot of mental health issues, and we searched every nook and cranny and program, and finally I had the results of the final measure, which was emergency request to National Archives, and they returned back that he is definitely not a veteran, but no one had any idea because he knew the language of veterans. He knew a lot of different things. Every once in a while he would mess up, but in his mind, he is a veteran. So it's very difficult, but we were able to get him assistance and at least get him so he wasn't spending the night outside at freezing cold temperatures. That was last Monday or Tuesday. So then I think he's back to driving around his vehicle now. And then the CDSO Act passed the House. It is in the Senate, and now that the Senate is, I guess, more democratically now, it has a very good chance of passing the Senate. That would give us $30,000 a year for the next 5 years. So we got a very good chance of that going through. Still, I didn't have the corrections, So I haven't sent out any of your letters. If you're okay with sending a letter just how it is, I just have to sign off on it. I didn't see any English errors, but I wasn't looking at it. We're getting ready for the legislative conference in February. I'm the delegate for City of Johnson, so I hold the voting rights, for all of our CDSOs, all 72 counties and 1 tribal nations. Whether I go out there or not, I don't know if they're gonna have us go out there or not, but usually it's every February, we meet with representatives and we push legislation to help veterans. The PACT Act was the big one last year, and then, there's a couple more that are going through the House to get additional issues fixed with the PACT Act, because right now, as it sits, there's another blue water veteran kind of issue happening. When they ruled on the PACT Act, the language in there states that you have to be assigned to a duty station in Iraq or Afghanistan. The problem with that is it singles out the Navy soldiers, or sailors, I should say, because they're not assigned to a duty station on land. They stay assigned to their ship, which sits in harbor, and then they go on land. So that actually excludes them. And it's just a simple error that people who weren't in the service didn't write the bill. So then there was an issue, and we're catching on it, and we're finding that all these issues are coming to light. So we're going through and getting them all written down and getting it all figured out. That one was actually caught by Bill Rosenau. He's the Winneshiek County Veteran Service Officer. So he's the one that caught that particular issue, and we've got it going up the chain. And I think our national association is already working on it, getting the language rewritten. So that was that one. I've got 100 veteran cemetery flag holders coming in. Not sure how long it'll take to get here, but they're on their way. And then when you guys were talking about the opioid crisis stuff, definitely use the VA as a resource. They have a lot of experience in this matter, because I'm sure you guys heard about the Tacoma VA and overprescribing opioids. Candyman was written as the one gentleman who was way overprescribing and everything. So, but they have a lot of experience now in the programs that they have access to, federal and state. So we can definitely use them. And then we're actually working with the VA on hopefully getting assistance with crisis intervention training. It's the training that jail staff and law enforcement go through to get them better, I guess, acclimated to the ability to deal with veterans in opioid crises or in mental health crises, or actually just regular civilians too, because they go through scenarios. I took the training twice, and it's amazing training, and you get literally have people yelling at you, and you're trying to figure out the situation, and you have to make decisions quickly that can result in life or death. And this training is amazing. So hopefully we're going to be able to get additional funding through the VA to help our county get additional training like this. They do the training, but it is very expensive, so they don't do it every year. So we're hopefully can get it done a little more often if the VA can jump in and help us. So other than that, that's all I have for you.
We're going backwards a little bit. We never approved your.
Oh, no.
So, can I have a motion? David's motion, second. All those, any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Oh, let's be.
$518.34, that's the total. Okay, thank you. Moving on. Let's start reading the Department of Human Services program reports, and the first one is Brianna.
Well, that's me. Jesse typically has a conflict this day, so you will hear from me on this. You'll see in here our Vernon County or overall RIA report for benefits. Just for Vernon County, I appreciate those the most, obviously. So you'll see that our November total recipients was 6,756. Healthcare only recipients was 4,066. Healthcare food share recipients was 2,317. For total healthcare recipients of 6,338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 370. So, 6,338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 370. So, 6,338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipients was 338 recipients. And then food share only recipi Those numbers are pretty consistent across the board, as you can see in comparisons with the other months. And then on the back side is kind of a continuation of that. And you'll see the dollar amounts has increased a little bit. The last 2 months pretty consistent though. And then you'll see childcare, family served 27 and children served 30. Which is up a little bit, but again, that just depends on if people apply for benefits. That's what I would say at the time of year. It really doesn't have any significance with this. I will just add that the public health emergency continues. We look for them to give notice in January for an end date 60 days after that, which would put us till March. So again, that continues. I didn't bring with me, and my laptop's up there, so I couldn't sneak out and print it. Teams requires us to use our laptop, but I will bring it for next time. We had a RIA director meeting this week, and it was pretty staggering numbers, and I wanted to share them with you about during the public health emergency, the dollar amount that is issued to individuals and families versus pre-public health emergency. It is almost $400,000 more every month that we're issuing because we're in this public health emergency just in our county alone. So there was there was just some comparisons for you to see. So I just wanted to share that with you because again, when this public health emergency does end, that is going to have a very significant impact on the individuals that we're serving, but also potentially our suppliers, our vendors in the community as well, because they are, making money off of this as well. So I think that's an important thing to remind ourselves. It will impact our economy in that regard. So again, that's from just the numbers I saw at a quick glance. Yesterday was again over $400,000 a month that it is providing to us.
And that's including like Badger
I think that
care.
was just terrible.
You're kidding.
No. So I just, yeah, so I wanted to show that. So it was pretty eye-opening for me to see that. So again, I'll print that for next time. And so that you can see that. But, so the impact will be pretty significant is what I'll say when that public health emergency does.
So that's it for the
Yeah.
RIA report. Brenda Wright,
Good morning.
good morning.
All right, so clerical front office, our November stats went down a little bit from October, which is good. We kind of blame that on more heating assistant applications kind of slowed down a little bit. We had 1,038 telephone calls and 191 window contacts. Our economic support, we have 2 positions that are vacant. We reposted one of them, had about 3 completed applicants. We tried to interview 2, 1 declined because she took a different job. And then we did interview 1, offered it, and she declined due to, she'd be losing money if she came and switched positions due to healthcare costs and the 37.5 hours versus 40 hours a week. So she declined that position, so we reposted that. We have those posted until filled at this time. Administrative Salvation Army, for November, we had 5 lodging, 2 utilities, 2 fuel. And year to date so far, from January 1st through November, we have lodging, 35 vouchers, 54 for utilities, 1 for clothing, 5 for food, 24 for fuel, and 3 for cab bus. And that includes emergency management. Our WE program, energy assistance. Currently, this was run first week of December. Total households applied for energy assistance at that time were 691. Paid out households were 548. And that is a total of 350,180. Total households paid crisis assistance were 23 for a total of 7,132. Furnace activity at that time, repairs 15, replacements 4, and no assessments. And that is it. Any questions? All right, anybody?
All right,
Thank you.
thank you so much for your report. We now have transport with Brooke.
Yep, and Brooke is off today, so I brought So I'll give her report. You'll see for her performance for the month of November, caseload size is 872. Court order performance is at 92.89%. Attorney establishment is at 95.48%. Current support collection is at 78.69%. Arrears collection, and this is a number that increases every month, so it accumulates, is at 43.27%, which is an increase of 13.16%, which is pretty high. And then the current support collected in Vernon County for child support in the month of November was, well, she has two different numbers there, I don't know. I think, for the year. So for the year is, but again, remember our year starts October 1 with child support. So, so is the total of $181,919.23. And then for the month of November is $146,308. Any questions about that?
Straightforward. Okay. Teresa Berger.
Teresa is up to date as well. So I'm gonna grab her report. All right. So you will see for November, she had a total of 15 CPS reports. Screen in were 10, screen out were 5. This is on page 1. Of those reports, physical abuse were 4, neglect 2, sexual abuse 4. Screen in alleged victims for the CPS report were 15. Screen out alleged victims was 5 for a total of 20 potential alleged victims. For the screen in report time response, same days, we had 3 same day reports, which I'll just add that statewide, other counties have been seeing an increase of this. So you'll see that for even the last 5 months, we've had 2 months at 2 and 2 months now at 3. The other counties have been seeing another similar results that hasn't been very typical. We typically have a same day of 1, I'll say. So I'm not sure, unfortunately, why that number appears to be changing. If it's the same day, that means that there's a serious concern, and so that I don't like that number either, unfortunately. So within 24 to 48 hours is 3, and within 5 business days is 4. So screen in services, we had 7, and the screen out was 1 for a total of 8. Which again, we try to screen in and at least offer services reports that we receive within our report. We do have a high screen in just for voluntary services, which is pretty typical.
Jill, can I ask a question? If you have a screen in for like a family with, I don't know, 3 kids or whatever, is that 3 separate cases or is that?
It's 1 case, but you would see the alleged victims would be 3. So our cases are usually under the, and this is just how the state system works, but it's usually a case head, and the case head is typically the mom in the household. So if we search a family in our system, it comes up under a case head, mom's name, and then the children listed that would be potentially in the home. And then it also tracks families. So like if the family lived in Dane County, they could search for this family and say, oh, Vernon County had this many reports on this family. These were the concerns, or they have an open case, that kind of thing. So it's a good system to have.
Thank you.
Youth referrals, truancy, we had 0, delinquency, we had 4. So total. And then total kids in care, foster homes currently is 24, kinship care is 16, residential care centers, that number has been consistent the last 4 months at 6. Targeted safety support funds, we have 2 families in that program with state funds, and coordinated services teams 5. Our case loans are pretty similar to last month. We will be able to, our newest worker should be able to have some cases in the future, so where it says NA, that worker will be able to have some. But you'll see those numbers are pretty consistent overall right me just grab my other sheet so I can just kind of report on the kids in our home care. I'll just remind you your current placements, those 6 kiddos that we have in residential care facilities. Again, Tomorrow's Children is one of the facilities. That's $425 a day. Cholita continues with that youth at $679 a day. Genesee Lake, although Commonwealth Residential, that continues at $588 a day. We have a juvenile at Hani, at youth and family programs, and that's $558 a day. And then we have 2 youth as well at the Milwaukee Academy at $486 a day. So those are 6 placements. And I would say the most likely of those to end would be the 3 youth, the Milwaukee Academy and the HUM, have the most likelihood to have that placement ending transition. So that's.
How soon?
I haven't heard from Katrina, the youth justice worker, most recently, what their status is, but obviously that the court, their treatment providers and the social workers and the guardian ad litems typically all play a role in that. So it kind of depends on what the court agrees to.
Are they all placed at different facilities because of different needs, or is that just vacancies?
Both. So based on all the notes that we're gonna their needs, like that Hami one is a little bit different. It's more for sexualized behaviors and different things like that in youth. And the treatment is kind of focused on that. Where the other ones are more focused on behavioral things and how they can provide some behavioral interventions in supporting them. But their needs are very different. If the ones that we've had there long-term have typically, again, mental health, intellectual disability as well, where the youth that we have in placement currently have more trauma, mental health, and delinquency there. So,
So, any other questions for the Family and Children's Services? I assume they've done their Christmas.
they're in the midst of all of that good new stuff. We got 153 pajamas yesterday from Online Health. So we have to order them and then they'll find homes for those pajamas.
They just sent you
153 pairs. Don't go down our hall. Probably fire down there right now.
Look down the hall myself.
Look, we need a curtain. So we have, and then the Lioness provided some baskets like they do for typically, which is like a food basket that we provide to families that we get referrals on that might need like a family style meal for them. And then the Christmas tree stuff feels community partners that do kind of those gift baskets off of their trees within their businesses will start to get those next week. So we're kind of in the mix of it all right. So
kind of have a busy.
Yeah, it's very busy.
Like this week.
Once they receive them, then they have to get them out, and it'll be a busy week.
Hopefully Santa Claus is coming.
Yep, Santa Claus is coming.
That's good. Long-term support. Vernon, good morning.
Good morning, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, I will start with our long-term support children's programs. We have 30 children in our birth to three program, 73 children in our children's long-term support waiver program, and 30 children in our children's community option program. I'll also mention that we are gearing up for our audit through the state for birth to 3 and CLTS. So Mackenzie and Dylan, the social workers, are working on pulling files, going through the sheets to see what the state's looking for this year. Our samples are up from last year, especially for the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program. So we have 25 children whose files will be reviewed this year for the Children's Long-Term Support Waiver Program, and 5 files that will be reviewed for the birth to 3 program. So that starts in January, and they review the files. They give us feedback on, did you miss this? Is this in there? Or, this looks really good. And then they give us a final report. So that takes a couple months. So by March, I would say, we'll have our results of how we did with that audit. Any questions about the audit, or I can keep updating each month on how that's going.
Okay, sounds good.
And it's
Okay.
also electronic, correct? Not face to face.
So, right, so they don't come here, like in the past, the state contracts with Metastar, and they would come to us and look at the files, but Mackenzie and Dylan have to upload 25 files of things that the state's asking for and send them electronically. So it's pretty time consuming, and difficult might be a good word. We've asked them in the past to come to us, but they have denied our request. So yeah.
That's like.
Okay, I'll move on to long-term support mental health. During the month of November, we had one emergency detention. That was a female who was a La Crosse County resident, and that was dismissed as the doctor did not want to move forward with that emergency detention. We have 21 consumers under a court commitment, 14 consumers who are in a mental health placement, 36 consumers who are in comprehensive community services, and 58 consumers who are in our community support program. And then for our long-term support new referrals, in November, we had 63 adult protective services information and referral calls. We had 6 adult protective services investigations. We had 9 guardianship referrals for adult protective services, which is huge. I don't know if I've ever seen that amount, but Madison and Erica are very busy. And we had 1 emergency protective placement. We currently have 1 consumer in AODA treatment, and I also have a referral for another one, so we're slowly getting some. I've reached out to Recovery Court, and they're sending some people our way that we can help to pay for some treatment for them. And we have 80 consumers who are under a protective placement order and who require annual watch reviews. Any questions for me?
This is Kathleen. I just have
Yes.
one comment.
Yes.
The CCS, Comprehensive Community Services, has an advisory committee, and they met December 6th, and I listened in on that. It was very interesting. Jill, are you like a co-chair of that? I appreciated your leadership, and it was a good learning experience for me. One of the points I remember Jill making is when it may say may look like a consistent number of people in comprehensive community services, but if it in the case Jill described, there had been 6 or 7 people who left and 7 or 8 people who came in, so it was actually much more work than looking at a graph that says, yeah, we had 35 last month and we have 36 this month. So it was just an interesting experience for me as a committee member to listen in on that advisory committee. So just want to say thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Gail. So CCS, if you recall, is a multi-region program that we are in cooperation with Crawford County Human Services. So I typically have taken the lead with those meetings, but Dan Nicholas is the director at Crawford County Health and Human Services, and he also is an administrator of that program. I just typically take the lead and kind of handle those meetings. But as Gail said, even though those numbers only look like we had 1 admission, I think we had, no, it was Gail. Gail was on it, so that.
Well,
okay.
No, it's Kathleen.
Oh, sorry. Oh, Gail is assigned to the committee.
Okay.
Kathleen
It was Kathleen, yeah.
Okay, sorry. So both of them attended that meeting, and as she said, that we did have quite a bit of work being done. We just don't often see that with the numbers, and so I think we had 6 discharges and 8 admissions in the past quarter. So lots of things are occurring in there. You just might not see that, but our goal is to really serve more individuals with that program as it serves people with substance abuse disorder and mental health. Either diagnoses, they often have both. It's a great program. It's completely Medicaid funded, and so it's a program that we really need to increase.
This is Gail, and I am new on that committee, and I appreciate Kathleen
attending. We both learned a lot that day and hope to continue. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Jerry Lynn? If not, well, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, you too.
Moving on to Brenda Olson.
Morning. For the month of November, the ADRC had 757 calls and 72 walk-ins. The dementia care specialist has provided services for 6 consumers, as well as case management and information to 11 individuals. Teresa has been involved in numerous events and classes this past month, including but not limited to Dementia Live, support groups, Savvy Caregiver, book club, the Memory Cafe, and Caregiver Boot Camp. Transportation, there was 19 ridership days in the month of November. There were 51 individuals who used the volunteer driver program, 46 used the minibus, and 37 used the minivan. There were 134 individuals who were able to benefit from this program. And the 8521 grant proposal that was approved last month is going to be submitted actually today to the DOT. The disability benefit specialist had 21 new client meetings in November. Lynette has a total of 55 contacts with individuals discussing topics such as SSI, SSDI, Badger Care, bus, housing, Medicare service, marketplace insurance, and some Medicare. Her financial impact for November and federal funds was $47,440. The elder care benefits specialist has been very busy for the month of November with open enrollment, which ended on December 7th. The nutrition program served 3,751 meals in November. 2,594 were home delivered and 1,157 were congregate. This is an increase of 127 meals in the month of November. Year-to-date totals are 38,795 meals. The social workers had 66 new client calls in November. There were 20 long-term care functional screens calculated this month. There were 3 IRIS referrals and enrollments, 8 family care enrollments, 3 disenrollments, and 2 transfers from MCO to MCO. There were 6 MA applications submitted with 4 still pending approval, and the ADRC still does have 1 open social work position.
Okay. Any questions?
Can you remind me what IRIS referrals are? Is that what she said?
Yeah, so IRIS is, I think it stands for Independent Respect something, right? Brenda?
Correct.
Yeah, but what it is when they do enrollment into family care, people have an option. They can either choose a managed care organization to help them, or they can choose IRIS. And IRIS is really independent. So it has to be a person capable of setting up their own services. But again, they have those choices. So they can choose a case management agency or an independent where they set up their own service.
Pretty good.
Yeah, I'm just looking over some of these numbers. It looks like everything's fairly consistent. Right. Any other questions? Why did they put question? All right. Thank you so much. And now we are on to Marcia Everson with her great numbers.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so we will look at our budget versus expenditures sheet. At this time of the year, we should be at about 92%. You'll notice in that top portion of the sheet, it does say 83%. So that's overall. You'll notice that some of them are over 100%, not $100, 100%. And under the specified state funds, and that's because when we did our budget originally, some of those specified funds we did not know about. So if you see like for developmental disabilities, that first one we're at 119.73%. And that's just because we got additional dollars under the DD program. And so that's why you'll notice that happening throughout the report in different areas. So overall, that Fund 80 it should be, or at about 92%. It says 83.27, but I did kind of look at what our levy portion was versus budget versus actual, and we really are right on target right now at about 92.7% is what our cash obligations are for this fund. So just so you know that. The bottom portion is our aging programs. Some of them you will see are a little over 100%, and that is because, additional dollars came in. So everything seems to be in line. Our home delivered meals are a little higher than average, but that's because, different meal sites were closed, into 2022. So things are kind of starting to get back to normal. And so you'll see those kind of stabilize going into next year, I'm sure. On the back side, let's see here, of course, we started our new year, so we're at 28% for the new year, which starts on October 1st through September 30th. And then CCS is over 100%, but that is a Medicaid program and not a levy program. So just so you know that. Unfortunately, though, the next section, which is the mental health costs, court committed costs, those are at about 168% right now, year to date. Continuing to keep an eye on that, but unfortunately, those costs, we can't do anything. Those are court commitment costs. So then the next section is the state mental health facilities, which is the Mendota, Winnebago. And I did not, as of last Friday when I was finishing this report, I did not have the new numbers, which were for, I believe these were for November. So November is not included on here. We're already at 182% here. Unfortunately, the November number was $37,728 more expenses that we're going to have to add on to that $182,570. So just so you know, unfortunately, we did get additional costs. Hopefully, we'll get some, reversals though on that. Maybe those individuals had insurance, and so those costs can come down a little bit. But other than that, that is all I have, unless you have any questions for me.
So if those costs don't come down, how do we cover those?
The great question.
Made a transfer between funds, but the bottom line is we don't know if we will have a transfer.
That's what I'm wondering.
Yep. So, but again, I'll just, the mental health state facilities line, which is Fund 79, which you talked about being so expensive, is that we do have a little bit more unusual placement that has been at Mendota. And so Mendota is typically a criminal unit, but they do have one civil unit for individuals with dementia that is still open. And we had an individual who has Alzheimer's dementia, and we had to do a commitment on, we placed them at Winnebago, and they actually transferred from Winnebago to this Mendota unit because it's so specialized. And then Jerry team meets weekly, I believe, with state personnel.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, Jill,
State
every week.
personnel and how this person is doing, and if there's a potential for this person to be discharged. That's not happening right now yet, correct? But the person is now still not doing very well.
That's correct. So the person is very highly specialized, one-on-one, 24/7, a lap belt, which is considered a restraint in nursing homes and other placements. So that's prohibiting her from finding a placement and really just not doing well overall. So we're searching, and Inclusa continues to search for a placement. And like Jill said, we meet weekly with Inclusa, ourselves, the Guardian, a member from DHS at the state level, and with Mendota as well, and it's just been a really difficult case.
To say, we never even had anybody at Mendota for this reason. You know, in past years, we've had mental health people there when they were open, you know, for several units. So this is a kind of a new experience for us, but it's very expensive. You know, this is the $1,700 a day stuff. But again, it comes directly off our line, and even though this person probably has Medicare and Medicaid, we won't get reimbursed until probably 2 months, 3 months later. You know, so.
Okay.
I know. It's a little bit unusual, but it's
Is this patient violent?
Yes.
That's why I assume she had violent.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
one-on-one.
she's probably
Elderly then?
and definitely not your usual nursing home person.
Yeah, no nursing homes will take her at this point due to the violence and
absolutely not.
acting out.
And they've tried different medicines to help. You
Yeah,
know,
and
and
the medications just aren't doing much at this point. I mean, they're helping a little, but not to the point where they can get her to a point where she's not acting out, hitting, biting, kicking.
Mm-hmm. Hurting staff and other patients. So, okay, so anything else for Marcia? I guess you gave us the news I expected.
Sorry, it wasn't better. Yeah, this year's been a little difficult, so.
You have a Merry Christmas too.
You too.
All right, thank you so much. Okay, moving on. Review and approve the HS service contracts amendments.
so you had one in your packet here. These are all comprehensive community services contract amendments. This little one pager here. You'll see pet counseling. They provide outpatient therapy for individuals in CCS. Soaring skills. The agency provides independent skills and wellness to individuals in that program. And Kim Minham is a private provider, but she also provides wellness services and rehab services for individuals in CCS. We typically start contracts with CCS at $5,000 if they're a smaller private provider. So that's why you'll see the contract amounts there originally were $5,000, $5,000, and $10,000. And then the next column is the amount that we're requesting a change to, and that is $7,000 in addition to the cat counseling, soaring skills, $19,000, and Kevin $5,000. So that's the change, and then the next column is the total that their contracts would be for 2022. The cabinets in the version 7.
It's for 2022 or 2023?
2022.
That's what making most of it.
The second for that. Yes. We'll see. Okay, any discussion, I guess? We obviously need this, I need to be asking that. So, anything anyone has to say? I think it looks like the general direction of things this year, so, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign? I heard. Okay. So everybody's in the pack. All right, let's move forward to number 9, discussion take action on human services budget for the internal transfers. All right. Well, let's just do the vouchers. Let's get that big old stack jumping in here.
So some of them you've kind of heard some already through different units. There really wasn't anything unusual, I would say. I mean, it's just things that you've kind of seen that are kind of usual and customary that we have budgeted for. We talked about, I think last month before we actually got the bills, you'll see a couple different Sleepy Hollow bills that we had because we had minibus tires that we needed to put on. 2 of our vehicles, one needed tires, one had a wheel bearing and brakes that needed. So we had 3 different car repairs this month of the 5 cars that we have. But I can go through what I circled detailed, and you can certainly let me know what you have questions on. Okay,
What page?
over. I don't know where we are.
All right, just keep going.
Okay, so page 4, you're gonna see Fair Assistance Running Incorporated. We use some of our transportation grant to have some cab vouchers on hand at the ADRC. So this is just to have some of those on hand for people who walk in who might need a cab voucher. And our grant allows us to pay for that. So we use those state funds to pay for that. So you'll see that. On page 6, again, you saw the volunteer drivers onto page 5 and 6, but then page 6, you see Richland County. We did pay Richland County to do a transportation for us. This is the person who lived on the line and that they have typically always arranged for. And so we just pay them back for that transportation instead of using our own provider for this. Page 7, you'll see Karen Hansen under training, and this is for the Strong Bodies program that Teresa, our dementia care specialist, organized. We get some preventative health money that we use that for. So we've been providing that for the last couple months. We talked about that last month. It's a 3-month process. Page 9, you're going to see into our mental health core commitment. Again, so these are placement costs. There was Lock on here. There was 2 months for Lock charges this month in October and in November. You're going to see when we have guardianship referrals and mental health core commitment referrals, we often have to have those individuals evaluated by doctors. And so you'll see some doctors here for mental health core commitment. Talent Protection Agency is a transport agency, so we did transport somebody in between facilities. They went from Eau Claire Hospital to Frontal Healthcare. So that transport cost for that 6-year transport. We did have a restitution payment, so you'll see that on page 10. So again, that's just we're just kind of a third party in the middle there when we have a juvenile who has to pay restitution. We receive the money and then we pay back the person that is owed the money for restitution. So there was a $261 restitution payment. Page 11, you're going to see Bertha 3 ARPA parenting place. Again, when Marsha was discussing the different expenses and that we're over budget, we're not technically over budget because we got additional dollars. The ARPA funds for the Bertha 3 program are for those play group days on Fridays that individuals that are in the Bertha 3 can attend a play group that is facilitated by one of the therapists through the Bertha 3 program. So those are extra dollars that we received to provide that play group. It is $3,585 left.
Yes, I had a question. That's back to what it was.
Yep, that's what it was, the play groups. And that's again why we were over on those lines, because we did not budget for that. We received that as an award grant. We applied. Yeah.
No.
I mean, it's $7, but it's separate, in the sense that there's many different ARPA funds that we've received over the COVID period of time through public health emergency that they're classified as ARPA, but they're not the same funds.
Right. Our health department also has their own funds. Vernon and Vernon Acres to have grants and funds that are separate. And we've applied for reimbursements for sheriffs as well. Emergency overtime.
Page 17. You're going to see UW Green Bay. That was a mental health training that we received for all workers that were able to do some online in-person training through UW Green Bay. A lot of that is crisis and behavioral health type training. You're going to see Tellurian detox. We did have one individual go into Tellurian one day. Again, those are voluntary, so they can leave. Well, they left, unfortunately. We We did have a short-term stay that we're using some Alzheimer's grant money for, and that person was able to go to one of the Bethel, PDRFs. And we'll use our Alzheimer's funds for a short-term stay for that individual to be placed there until we can manage their finances and figure out what's going on as what they have to be able to pay for. Again, page 15, these aren't unusual, but you'll see the Wisconsin Department of Justice, it was a background check for a foster family. UW Madison, that was 6 trainings for 3 workers. Page 16, we did have under respite care admin costs, that was for a translator in the middle of the page. We have a Spanish speaking family that we provided a translator services for. A little bit, not always usual and customary. Page 20, the child support agency had lab for, and that was just, again, those are the DNA testing, 3 different paternity establishments, DNA testing that we did for family. Then we round out the vouchers with their comprehensive community services vendors. That's what I have.
Well, I had a pretty short list this month. And you covered most everything.
Okay.
So,
No, yeah, they, I think some of it is that some of those original grants, they had, some counties didn't spend something that they decided that they were gonna award out. So what happens is the federal government gave the state money, right? And it's considered ARPA funding. And then the state decided what they wanted to do to that. And so then they sent it out to counties to apply for different grants for it. Over the past 3 years, some of those counties haven't been able to spend all the money, so then they had money left over. And so then what happens is, in the now 3rd year we're in, is they've awarded more money to different counties for maybe the same purpose or a new purpose. So they've kind of repurposed that leftover money.
And we're seeing that across all programs. There's, for example, the folks that are on economic development, we're seeing that recapture from some development grants that local businesses can tap into.
Our heating pool that's kind of drying up for the last.
I have not seen anything new from across for that yet.
And fiber.
Nope. So there's something, but they, typically they're not out of money yet. So what'll happen is the closer we get to May, when that service ends, the money will all get spent down. At that time, they'll determine whether or not they can add more to that to assist people in crisis. So it'll only be in December. But they're not worried about it yet.
Yeah, funny, but the good practice was you're still applying for additional profit funds.
We apply for grants as they come through and think with the county.
so any more questions for Joe on any of these? If not, I would like a motion for the $591,440.14 to meet up the vouchers.
I'll make a motion. Pay vouchers.
Makes a motion, second that.
I'll second it. This is Kathleen.
Kathleen is going to second that. Any discussion on anything? Kathleen? Not? All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. All right. There's a busy month.
It was.
Did you get a chance to read?
No, but I'll write the report on.
Okay. Now the next one is, we have to finish your internal transfers.
So if you see this page here is our internal transfers, and these are pretty usual and customary. Again, you're gonna see minibus, $20.91 is for your car washes, and then 91 cents is for soap. Home delivered meals, you're gonna see congregate meals. Those First two charges are again for Vernon Manor to provide those meals for us. And then the home delivery meals and congregate meals other, the $45 charges is for Bryn, the dietitian at Vernon Manor, to review our different congregates and home delivery meal sites menus to make sure that we are in compliance. So they charge us separately for Bryn's time as a dietitian. So that total amount, I think, was $5,564.40.
Okay,
Motion.
yes,
Move.
all right. So Dave makes a motion to accept this. Second on that.
Gail, I would second.
Okay, okay, is first. So, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Side opposed? Got that? All right. Then on to.
Do I talk about all of these?
Sure.
So Mary did approve, the two Wednesday checks that we typically request, once a month, and that is for our Westby Co-op Credit Union MasterCard and for our Walmart credit card, so we can pay those timely. This time of year is very busy, you know, that for our credit card, because it's the end of the year, so we're trying to use up some state funds that we've received for like children's COP and children's waiver to serve families and use up that money or it goes back. And so, and then also, we do have some just other administrative charges we had. And so Mark Fisher can help me talk about this maybe a little bit, but we had $1,800. $1,893 was for 3 different Medicaid numbers that we have as a county. So we have Medicaid numbers that we're able to bill Medicaid for. Those Medicaid numbers require us to renew those Medicaid numbers and pay us a charge for that. And that charge is a little over $600 and some per Medicaid reimbursement number that we have. And so the ones that we have are for mental health and crisis, for CCS, and for CSP for our program. I believe those are the 3 Medicaid ones that we needed required renewals this month. And so that took up quite a bit of charges of that $1,893. Children's COP, our family support funds, was $1,247. But overall, we pretty much were close to maxing out our card with other charges. And so Mary did approve those. That total was $4,823.57 for a Westby Co-op credit card. $4,823.57. No problem. The other one. Walmart card was only $157.54. And that was, we did some congregate meals, other supplies, there was some family and children's, and a gift card that we had for donations of $106. So that's why it was pretty small. The other thing with Walmart is, even though we might have purchased some things at Walmart, you cannot use your credit card online through Walmart.
You can't use this.
Yeah, credit card.
Well, that kind of blows things up.
And so it's kind of, yeah, so it's a little bit, even though we might have made some purchases at Walmart, we had to use our WCCU credit card to make those purchases at Walmart. It's crazy. So we told her the two that she had approved.
Okay. So, any questions on those? Guess not. And now we're going to go to number 11, Human Services Director report. Okay, me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. Oh, yes, the important, discuss and take action on Vernon County opioid prevention. So, explain.
Did you see this on the online?
Yeah.
Oh, I did.
And, yeah, there's lots of discussion yesterday too, so.
Yeah.
So, she tell us what,
Right, so do you want me to leave?
Yeah, go for it.
As a county, we had met to discuss the opioid settlement dollars. So with the opioid settlement dollars, as you recall, we did receive an initial amount of money county-wide to use for prevention and abatement. But we also are hoping to receive a lump sum, correct?
Right, so I can talk to this. So, basically the settlement, as you guys might know, is for a set amount that will be paid out through 2038. The total would be, if we accept it, along the timeline of those payments, like $732,000. Now, in Q1, there will be an option, across all counties to receive a lump sum. So basically to securitize that, which would basically be a third party doing a bond offering so that the counties can get their money upfront as a lump sum, which would alleviate any risk of one of those companies that we settled with filing for bankruptcy 2 years from now and not paying out over the term. So that might be an option that the board, that would be presented to the board as a whole. Probably in Q1, we were expecting it sooner, but it's been held up just due to the legalese of the company that would manage that bond offering with the wording of the settlement. So, but this, what Jill's going to walk you through is a proposal that we would hope would stand either way for this committee, and also encompass any future funds that could arise from future lawsuit settlements. So as we talked about in the last board meeting, there's those 3 paths of settlements. So one is the distributors, one is the manufacturers, one is the pharmacy. So the distributors is what we agreed on in 2021. That's the dollars that are before us now. The manufacturers, that's a little further down the road, and we've seen more of those companies file for bankruptcy already. And then the third is the pharmacies, and that's what you might be reading about right now in the media. Those are kind of earlier on and not to the point of lawsuit or settlement yet, although that could be something that happens in Wisconsin municipality for 4 Wisconsin municipalities down the road. Does that background make sense? All right, take it away, Jeff.
I just want to make sure they do that.
Yeah.
So, again, as a county, several different departments met, I don't remember if it was last week, I think, to kind of discuss, the opioid, settlement funds, and, we are seeing different, agenda items have this on there. And so we felt like we needed to have a little bit focus and steering of those funds as a county. And most counties have been doing this in the sense of creating a steering committee to have a focus and goal of use of these funds. And so that was a great next step that Carrie had proposed for us as a county. And us departments, several different departments had met and agreed with that. And so the health department did put this on their agenda, as well as us as human services, to create such steering committee to have a focus of these use of these funds county-wide. So that's truly what this resolution is about. So
In this resolution,
that is correct.
Right, and so this would go to the county board as a joint resolution from Health and Human Services to create a committee. That committee would solely oversee settlement funds for use in. Still said the reason is right now we're seeing this spread among public safety agendas, human service agenda, health agenda, and it's not completely clear who has responsibility for the funds, and so they're sitting there. And so putting this in the hands of a single committee that has a fair bit of community participation would probably be the most effective way to put these funds to use in the community. It's not a lot of money that Vernon County has right now when you think about the time span that we might be receiving this over, and so it makes sense to make the decisions in the most efficient way possible.
so I remember from yesterday, so it says, we will have a representative from these various departments. Could you envision doing this? I mean, I assume it would be the person that deals with this type of thing.
Right, I think we have designated department heads as the representative. So, so for example, here it does currently say, Whereas the input and approval of the Board of Health Committee and Human Services Committee, it is recommended that Vernon County create a cross-department steering committee to allocate and oversee the use of these funds that is comprised of the county and community representatives below. One representative from the County Board of Supervisors, one representative from mental health providers, one representative from healthcare providers, one representative from law enforcement, one representative from education, and then departmental engagement and support from department heads of human services, health, emergency management, and recovery. So I would be included in that last line as a department head, a part of human services. Amy would be health, Brandon would be emergency management, and in recovery court, I assume Monica would be.
And after Crystal speaking today, perhaps it makes sense to add veteran service to this.
I think it might, because so many veterans have served.
So a couple of things
Yes.
on this. There's been, after the health committee yesterday, there was interest from another supervisor, so maybe it makes sense to have, I think the goal of this is to have folks that are very engaged in this issue on this committee to help move decisions as quickly as possible. A second supervisor voiced strong interest. It could make sense to add a supervisor to this so that there's two supervisors from the county board if the committee would like to do this. You could add a community participant at large if you would like. So this is simply before you as a resolution. You can amend it, you can give feedback and input on it. Again, kind of the mission of it would be to put these funds to use as effectively and quickly as possible.
What are the rules for spending this money? I mean, there must be some rules for the spending of the money, aren't there?
100%. So the lawsuit settlement has a whole schedule of what the county can use it. That's right, Exhibit E. So I think the other thing that's useful in bringing these department heads together under one committee is different departments have access to different resources to solve this problem. So for example, even as we were just speaking, Brandon was saying it would be very helpful for emergency management to have some fentanyl strips, and Amy might from health department says, I think there might be a grant that we could get some for free through the Department of Health. And so even just the idea of one committee to share resources. Jill has access to different grants and funding to address this. And so it's really about putting all resources to address a specific problem in one room to have that discussion.
I appreciate that feedback, because at first I was like, that is a big committee. How are you going to?
Well,
the
the voting committee would be between 5 and 7 voting members. Again, like with you guys giving feedback on the resources that we've taken a stab at proposing. And then the department head engagement, they would be engaging as staff and department heads to be the experts on the programs and the resources.
So how do you decide who is voting?
Well, the voting would be one representative from the county board of supervisors, or two if you determine a representative. It's a representative from mental health.
Okay.
A representative from law enforcement, education. You could add a community at-large member if you'd like. So those would be, department heads are typically not voting members of committees. And that's outlined in your board rules and your committee structure document.
Did you say that lump sum?
There's not, because for bond offerings, that's dependent on interest rates. And so what we had originally received was over 500,000. Now interest rates would change that. So that's why it's not coming to the board for approval until they're ready with the language to do that offering, because that's when the amount would be set for what you'd be approving.
So $500,000 is back over time.
That's true.
So this is going to be like a 3-month program.
Well,
I mean, realistically speaking, looking at some of the stuff we could use it on, you can use it on family.
Right, I think that's the bottom line we have to consider here, and I think that's why we're trying to have different departments across the board be a part of that conversation, because you hear about us oftentimes, using some of our substance abuse block grant money for prevention and for treatment, right? We do that already. So, you know, how can we best utilize all the money that we as a county are currently receiving, and in addition to this, right? But you'll see on there, you know, for the lawful services and the core services that they're recommending their use of, you know, how could we provide some type of prevention, maybe with resources we currently have, but in a long-term manner, right? So like, is it paying, you know, a resource officer to do some prevention, you know, in schools? I think that we're gonna have to think outside the box here. It might be upfront training that we're doing with hospitals and emergency personnel, such as first responders, law enforcement, and nurses. You know, it could be many different things, but right now, it was so scattered as a county, everybody trying to decide what they think they should do with it, that we had to bring it together to focus on what should we do as a county. Because again, it really isn't one department's money.
Right. And I think there's some pretty low hanging fruit that we could do a better job at addressing. So just because it's not a lot of money isn't a reason to do nothing.
Well, we need to like, just
Yeah.
keep that in mind, or doing something. If you
But-
disappear pretty quick.
But for example, childcare vouchers so that people can attend meetings, for those that are in recovery. Like, there's just some really low hanging fruit that's pretty basic that we could do a better job at addressing. And this would be enough to do some of those things. And so putting all of those heads in one room to think about the resources that we have and how we can move effectively. The reason that our amount is lower than some other counties is because, well, also because of impact. So, you know, we've been hit less aggressively than some other counties, which we're fortunate for.
I know we approved the dementia specialist. Well, but hey, so, what point person.
Right, right now, you know, the work that our department is doing is really kind of scattered between a workers and a supervisor, you know, and so it does allow for you to hire staff, but again, that cost would be so high, that would take away from the direct service that we could provide people. So that's where I kind of, you know, we gotta take a step back and decide what is best for us as a county.
I really like the idea of providing things like a voucher for gasoline, things that they're not huge. This isn't a big amount of money, but they can make big impacts on individuals.
But this is all something that the community would be talking about now.
It's not us.
100%.
So when we're talking about this, the only thing, I would add is maybe adding the veterans office, simply because it is a large problem.
And she's been doing it for so long, and she's not a good contact.
You had another supervisor express passion for this issue.
There have been 2 supervisors that have expressed strong interest, yes.
And then
So we
the
may-
resolution currently says 1.
We should probably put 2.
That brings you 30 members, that's 6.
Does this create, I know in our bylaws, I think, or somewhere along the way, we limited board committees to 5 members, but that is only board supervisors, right? That's not, okay, so that 6 doesn't matter.
Right, so if you wanted 7, you could add a community member at large. You could, I mean, again, this is a proposal, you can do what you wish with it.
Well,
I mean, it seems to make sense to try to get some other community engagement in it so that there might be, you could start some things that will go beyond the funding. I mean, if you have community involvement that would continue.
Yes, because we had somebody who did it that has experience.
And that's a great point, because there are a lot of agencies or nonprofits in the community that are probably organizations, maybe that's a better word, that are focused on the same issue. So by what means can we engage them to have that multiplier effect?
So we're talking about an at-large person too.
This is Kathleen. Yeah, I'm definitely in favor of a community member being on the committee. And I have a question. So one voting member would represent healthcare providers. How would that one individual be chosen?
So they would be appointed, and so I would work with the department heads to identify someone in the community who would be a good fit based on the work they're doing and also like sort of have time and passion to engage. Because again, we do want folks on the committee that are gonna be engaged in.
Yes, so, and one representative of, education. So among all the different school districts in Vernon County, you would, the department heads would, well, I don't know who's in the best position to choose one educator out of Vernon County, but that would be your process.
So, Brandon in emergency management works pretty closely with the schools, on a lot of their planning. And so, he might be in a good position to reach out. Again, we won't be voluntolding anyone for this. We'll be sort of requesting their participation and seeing if they're interested.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Okay.
Right, and I kind of think, Kathleen, too, like some school districts and some healthcare providers have currently expressed some interest in these settlement dollars and have already kind of engaged a little bit with questions. So I think, some of it would be voluntary as well as appointed. Like, we do have 7 school districts in the county ourselves, but, Hillsborough, for example, has 5 different counties in that school district, so would they be the best representative for the county? I can't answer that, but maybe they're the most engaged too, so again, I think it would be kind of a process that we would kind of work towards having the most engaged, yet, one person who could also maybe has a connection with those 7 other school districts to also express maybe jointly what the education, of those 7 school districts that representative could bring forward those ideas.
Yes. And could I make one other comment? The idea of using the money for things like childcare vouchers or gas vouchers for people to go to meetings, I would hope the committee would really, really search if there are any other ways to fund those small needs, because this is such a limited amount of money, and I don't know, I would just hope it's used for things with the biggest impact.
Well, I think that's what Carrie was speaking to, that having all these department heads and individuals in the room may network to other paths of funding that aren't known to the whole.
Yes. Madam Chairwoman, would it be appropriate to ask today's guest citizen if she has any other comments?
It can be. Do you have any other comments?
I just don't want you guys to overlook just because of the fact it's not a big money amount. I think if this is a beginning of engaging the community in this issue, that is, I just can speak for myself that I have learned so much, and I did not realize things that were happening right here and the impact that it's having on our communities. I think we could start something, we could really get people involved. And, if I didn't know that there was a need for daycare, like maybe I could fundraising to, there's lots that can happen once we get the ball rolling. And so I think it's more than just the money, it's the attention.
And if I could make just one more comment on it, what we're talking about here is the appointment of the voting committee members, or how we're going to want to structure that voting committee. But the second piece that has a much larger circle around it would be the communication piece. And so this is a steering committee, but the communication out to the communities and the potential partner organizations is the part that really has a much bigger impact.
And that's not discussed in this.
Right.
Or setting the criteria.
Okay.
Voting with the steering.
So, Mary, do we need to bring that to the floor and make modifications to it, or do we just make modifications and then bring it to a vote?
Yes.
Carrie?
I believe you could amend what is before you right now, so the amendments that I hear would be to change one representative from the county board of supervisors to two, and one at-large community member. I mean, this is kind of, you can, and veteran, yes.
And I think we should make that so it reads that when it comes to county.
And I will amend, make a motion to this amend.
Which would be,
Two county board supervisors, one community at large, adding Crystal veteran services. And yes, is that what we talked about?
Yep.
I would second that.
okay, so that was the motion. And Katie, did you second? You made the motion, and Nancy seconded, okay. Any more discussion?
So Crystal as department head, then goes into the department head category. So
I think we would read it as department engagement and support from department heads of, and then we would have veteran services.
Veteran services.
Yes.
Okay. Was everybody good with that one? All right. Anyone online with any more questions or comments? Quiet. Okay. Any more discussion? All right, all those in favor of the amendment? Is you like to read it back? So everybody knows what they're exactly voting on. Or just word it. We know what it is. We just really just changed to two voting.
I can edit the document.
Okay.
Send you the PDF for signature.
Okay.
Or I'll just have it printed and then leave you to sign at the board meeting.
Oh, that'd be great. Okay. All right. Sounds good.
Aye.
So all those in favor of the motion change, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, thank you. Opposed, same signal, or the same sign. All right, it passes. Oh.
Okay, thank you, that was good. Then I have my updates. I just like to inform you guys, as we receive our legal invoices from Swain Law Office. So this month, our department did have $7,592.99 worth of pro counsel, legal services fees for our Department of Human Services. Again, this includes the long-term support department, child support, and sometimes if there's a minor guardianship from the family and children's unit. But typically the family and children's unit is assisted by the assistant DA. So only in the minor guardianship cases do they assist us.
They don't provide their own labor services.
Guardian ad litem fees?
Yeah.
Those are typically paid by the court.
By the court.
Yeah.
They can have the representatives regarding the way that swing. They probably couldn't.
No, they do not. It would be conflict. So they usually, what they do is they have a list of eligible attorneys and then they call out to assist with those at the guardian ad litem. That's correct. Other updates, we talked about, just some vehicle needs. I did talk with the highway department, Phil, and he had been in conversations that there is a 2023 government reduction that you can receive for vehicles again. So that will start in 2023. So I think we'll start that process, and because we can get that rebate, I did that into the 2023 year. So again, we would be looking at replacing one of our vehicles at this point with a trade-in. We typically have done them at around $20,000. So when we send that RFP out, we ask for them to stay under a certain amount of dollars. Okay.
And then just for committee awareness, so the board rules anything over 25,000 has to go to RFP instead of like those.
What grade it is?
I wrote it down. I think it was $3,500.
that's also substantial.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about that. We were able to, the last time we purchased a new vehicle, 2 years ago was the Journey, and that was an all-wheel drive vehicle, if you recall. So workers do tend to use that sometimes. It also helps if we are doing a meal run and we're down a driver because it has the back end is right to fit lots of things. So
I think we decided we needed something, people that potentially both seconds.
yes,
So if you have a family issue,
several different children are trained in.
yes.
Correct. And then we talked about the public health emergency, continue it. So one other thing I did, I will bring up, is our Birth at 3 program. So, our Birth at 3 program currently, again, is a program for children who have a 25% delay. And that could be as simple as a gross motor delay in walking. It could be a speech delay, or it could be that a child has more severe needs due to a medical condition that they have, or even autism. Okay, but it serves children or infants 0 to 3 and toddlers. And after 3, they usually, if they still would qualify, would transition to school services, or they successfully completed. That program we currently contract with the Parenting Place with. We've held that contract with the Parenting Place for about 3 years, maybe 3 years now. And prior to that was Cooley Children's Center. We made the transition to the Parenting Place because Cooley Children's Center had served both LaCrosse County and Vernon County with that program. LaCrosse County had put an RFP out, and they chose the Parenting Place as a part of their RFP, which ultimately led Cooley Children's Center to close their doors and give us less than a 30-day notice in doing so, which led us to move to the Parenting Place for our services as well. They're a great agency. They're nonprofit. They provide the service coordination as well as the therapies for our children. But they went through a wage study themselves, and the rates that they're proposing are very significantly larger for us in this next year, to the point where I really feel that the impact that they are asking for is $100,000 on their contract over right now. Our current contract for them for $160,000, and they are asking for $200,000 for the same amount. It's an entitlement program, means we can't have a wait list. We're required to provide the program, and we're required to serve who is eligible for that program. And again, it's immediate. So because of that amount, I really think we're going to have to put it forward with an RFP. I also think LaCrosse County is going to be doing this as well, because they had the same type of rate request proposal applied to them as well. So we're kind of in discussions about that, but I just want to give you a forewarning of that. The only concern that I have is that this is a specific program and service. It's not like I can go shop for 10 different agencies that provide this service, right?
Okay, do they have a monopoly on this one?
Yeah, they do. You know, we have 35. Yeah. And we have a certain percentage of our county. Yes, and again, and we might have to serve 50 kids with that in a year's time. You know, they can age in and out of the program. They might successfully leave the program. You know, again, you have high needs kids versus maybe someone with just a speech delay. You know, so again, it really kind of depends on that. But again, we did reach out to Crawford, Richland, and Monroe County, our neighbors, just to kind of see what they pay. And the rates that we paid last year are pretty similar to what they currently pay. But with the new proposal, it's more than double what we currently
Who do
pay.
they use? Who do they use?
They typically have used, Monroe uses CISA 5, and Richland uses Richland County Hospital, and then they have some in-house providers, and then Crawford has an in-house service facilitator, and they use, forgetting the name of the hospital in Furnishing, just name of a bridge. Okay, but it's the hospital in Furnishing. Because again, we're talking about occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech and language pathologists, you know, so those are typically found in a hospital setting, even though we're providing this service in people's homes. So I think it will cause us to do some outreach to our local vendors. It could be St. Joe's, we could reach out to Vernon Memorial, we could reach out to even Richland, so again, but it's not necessarily an agency I can go to right now and kind of have some discussions with them. So this RFP, we would still put out, but again, I think it's really gonna be a larger discussion for us to kind of make something work. And not that I'm already saying that we would leave the parenting place, but I just can't justify those rates knowing what everybody else is paying. But again, it could come down to, if we don't get anybody who applies for that, we also could be stuck paying those charges as well.
What time frame are you talking about? Yeah,
I know. I really wanna jump on this and kind of get this going as quickly as possible.
Change start first there.
Yes.
What else?
15 days. Of course it does.
So when did you find out?
And we have a contract with them saying they can't change your rate. You have to give us like 60 or 6 months notice or something.
Yeah, I think, they probably gave us, I think our conversation was probably 2 weeks ago, so, they give us a 30-day notice that this is what they're requesting. We don't have to agree to the contract change, but the thing is, we're gonna run up right on that contract because of their charges, they're specific.
So it's program is the CSEL.
CSLIT typically has all these services in-house right now because we serve school districts with it, right? But, so it would have to be like, would they have enough capacity to assist us as a program? CSA 5 is actually out of Portage, I think. And so they have served a couple counties with this, but they also, again, serve other school districts in that area as well. I don't know if our local CSA 4 would offer, would it be a potential for this? We would certainly try to include them in that if they would be interested in that, because again, they are typically contracted with school districts and already provide some of this service.
Yeah.
Yes, our local offices, I was saying.
So with, if we go into the next contract year, are you bound to be, like, if you found someone who was willing to do it at a better price, can you switch mid-year?
Yeah, we would have to give notice to them.
The other thing is, if lacrosse is also looking at jumping, would that previous one close down, reopen?
I don't think so. Just because of what happened when they said that they could provide this service to us, is those staff fled. And then they went to the new place, or they went to other agencies, and then, and so I don't think they're even in business.
Can all these services be done separately through the hospital? Like you have a place that does everything, but could you piecemeal it?
Yes, I mean, and so like, like a hospital's not gonna have a service facilitator, a case manager of this program, so we might have to piece that part of it, but they would have the therapies, but then again, I'm hearing those therapies to go into homes versus seeing people in a clinic setting, right? And so then you have your travel, and you have that time, and then meeting times and different things.
Yeah, so we could piecemeal some.
Yep, maybe even like Hillsborough, who's willing to serve the Hillsborough area, maybe VMH is willing to serve the Baroque area, right? So I mean, like, we could potentially have a couple contracts that could provide overall, maybe that. I don't know. I'm hoping to see what we have.
I mean, it's nicer to have all one stop, but if we had to.
So
I'm naive, but do you have to go into the?
We do, and this state requires us to do it in their natural setting. So we can go into daycares, but the idea is that we're coaching parents on how to do therapies for them through the whole rest of the week as well. So it's kind of like a coaching piece as well. So like, it isn't just a therapy. It's coaching the parent on how to provide that therapy on a daily basis. So how can we get the parents engaged so that the child is learning to speak more, right? And so they can do that every single day that we're not there. So there's an engagement piece to it as well.
I'm pretty familiar with it because I had nephew that served FEDS program. They came in and did physical therapy. And he kind of engaged the family. So physical therapy 1 day a week doesn't do it. The family has to be able to provide that and have benefits. So that's kind of how this program works.
Yep. So that's just an FYI. Yeah.
Well, okay, good hunting.
Thank you. And then the last thing is just, I did not set a schedule for next year. So I'm hoping that you guys will do that, of when you would like to meet for this meeting.
You're saying like switching the day?
Right, do you want to keep the same? And I think that's usually determined by you guys, and so I typically like to give you the days of all the committee meetings, so you have it and put it in your calendar and et cetera. And I didn't do that because I just wanted to make sure that.
I think last year Gail was the only one that had a problem with Wednesdays. Gail, are you still having a problem with Wednesdays or not?
No, I work around it.
Would Wednesdays work for you again next year?
It should.
When I say 1 p.m.
Want to stay bench?
I like to do it in the morning. I don't know what
I'm
I'm gonna do.
concerned about people that come from those groups.
I can connect, but
We could do that if that makes people happy.
I noticed that is the typical board meeting time at 9:30 versus 9:30.
Well, first for you, Joe,
I'm here every day, so.
but your time and your staff, so I mean,
right.
you don't wanna run it in over your lunch break. I know you sit there and eat your yogurt and sandwich at the desk, but.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think it is better just in the morning, so you can, I don't know, that's how I like to just get it done.
And Mondays are a terrible day for you, so.
And Mondays are for everybody. You know, I know running a business, Mondays, one day you have to get them everything.
What was that? If you want to push it to 9:30, I'm fine with that. That's it. That half hour isn't gonna make a difference to me.
I was just remembering back on the,
I'm fine keeping in the morning, like 9:30 is fine, but 1 really
I
gets,
think he was joking.
you never know with them, you know.
But I like.
That screw his name.
when Joe, you were telling us about, I mean, the highway workers. When we lost a few cents, yeah, it's late, they concentrate primarily on state, highways, according to highway roads that lead all the way to coast road. But I think 9:30 would help a lot.
Like the golden comes the first day.
It works pretty well for me too.
Yeah,
You think it's,
yeah, that's right, most days.
but 9:30.
That's perfectly fine with me.
Yes,
Yep.
9:30 is
We
fine.
don't have
Okay. No, we don't. I just wanted to ask you.
It's like-
Sorry.
That's my own thing.
Okay.
So that's starting in January 18th.
January 18 is what I proposed. Yeah.
Now, is that later? Like now, we're on the second Wednesday.
Yeah. So that's
So
the
the second
3rd.
Wednesday in January, it was the 11th.
That's right.
Is it?
Yes, that's what I,
What is the first Monday in January?
the 2nd.
First Wednesday would be the 11th. The
No.
18th.
So if we have a coming board meeting, it would be on the 17th, if we're sticking to, so if we have
Yeah.
anything we wanna bring to it, we'll be meeting
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, the only thing, there's a couple, second Wednesdays that we moved to a third Wednesday due to timing and vouchers. And so, my only concern would be,
It's about getting their billing in, given
Yep.
the holidays, since the second will be a holiday for, probably county and state offices.
and I think that's why I pushed that one later.
Okay.
So, the third business day is what we require vouchers to come into us, and then we have to then incorporate all of those vouchers that you've seen today, that 30-some pages, then has to go to the finance department and then also to kind of get processed. So it does take a little bit of time. I don't know if we would meet the financial department's deadline to get it back to us in time for that. So that's why I think I pushed it back. And I think that's where I'll have to look at how the third business days falls in January, or in each month, whether or not we could determine we could do a second Wednesday versus a third Wednesday. And we did, when we changed the committee, there was only 3 days, I think, in the 6 months I had to change to the third Wednesday, and if we could keep it at the second Wednesday, I would do that.
Oh, okay.
Does
So
that?
you get to that.
So it's just January that we're,
It
at
does-
the moment.
Yeah, at the I didn't look at it further, because I didn't know what you would decide.
Sure.
But I just know in those 6 months that I had done it, I think 2 or 3, we changed to the third
Mhm.
Wednesday.
And that resolution's gonna be good to go. Very good.
Yes.
Grades.
Yes. Carrie put it on the agenda for.
That's on the agenda
It's on the
for,
agenda.
for next,
Yeah.
yeah, for December.
Right, get you. Okay, so I think, let's try to keep
Keep
it
it
on the
same.
second,
Okay.
Wednesday, but if it doesn't work out,
We'll go to the third.
the next month it'd be.
Yep.
Okay, so, is there anything else? Are we good? So, I asked for, yes,
Motion to adjourn.
all right.
I'll second that.
First, second, got that?
Yes, ma'am.
Guess who came from?
At night.
It's gonna be at 9:30.
Okay.
On
But we
January.
usually hang out and talk beforehand, so if you want your thing. Yeah.
Twenty board meeting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care whether it's 9 or 9:30, but if you go, yes, I don't know, roads or whatever they are.
I'll make it good.
Yeah, you gotta feed your dog. Oh, you, I thought you retired.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to get the hot box going.